Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Just give me a second, how the hell did that get there? Okay, that feels a little bit better. Anyway everyone, today I'm going to be doing a quick reading update for the month of March and talking about the 3 books I've read so far, and I'm going to be introducing the book that I'm reading for the week of Weird. See you soon. Okay everyone, now that I feel a little bit safer, let's go through the 3 books that I've read so far this month, starting with Zombie by Michael Slade. Now I've read 3 of Michael Slade's novels so far in the XXX series, and my favourite by far has been Ghoul. This is probably my least favourite, which I'll explain why a little bit later, but it was still a reasonably good novel with an excellent ending, but let me just go through a little bit of the novel with you. All of Michael Slade's novels seem to have very intricate plots, very bloated, very descriptive, and a hell of a lot of attention to detail in terms of the criminal sort of scenario. When the crime takes place, there is no lacking for attention to detail of every single aspect of the crime and the investigation, which is awesome. Because as I've mentioned in a previous video, Michael Slade is basically 3 Canadian authors who happen to be experts in criminal psychology, and this shows in all of his novels. Now there are 3 main plot strands that are introduced in this novel almost immediately in the first chapter. Number 1, a maniac escaped mental patient from Germany who's a cop killer. Somehow finds himself in Canada, and he is targeting and brutally murdering some of the Royal Mounted Police Force. Now this was very interesting as there is immediately a manhunt on for him, and this links up quite closely with some of the other stuff that happens in the very first chapter. It was intriguing and it was exciting, and I enjoyed the resolution of this plot as well. Okay, the second plot line deals with Detective Nick Craven, who is a hero in previous installments, previous novels from the XXX series, and he is on trial for the murder of his mother, and this was a lot of fun. He basically goes to court and everything seems to be kind of standing up against him. We're not sure if he's been framed. There's one small piece of evidence that seems to damn him, and there's a race against time for some of his colleagues to basically free his name, to make sure that his reputation is intact, but I found this very exciting, especially the whole court procedure part. Was very thrilling indeed. And then the third plot strand, which is perhaps the most important, is that there's a psycho, possibly an insider, who is targeting the elite members of the Canadian Royal Mounted Police, and he is full of hate, and that hate runs very deep, and it seems to go back to a century ago with the colonialism and the battle between the colonialists and the Southern African, the Battle of Rorke's Deep, which I mentioned in my previous video. And I just feel, and there's an African curse involved as well, and I just feel that this could have been perhaps trimmed down, perhaps edited a bit, because it was a bit long-winded and it took away from my love for what was going on in the story. However, I still think it is a magnificent story, and it does build to a climax that is worthy of Michael Slade, and everything comes together to make it a great novel. Look, I'd probably give it about a 3.5 out of 5, but it's still well worth a read for anyone that loves Michael Slade. Okay everyone, the second book that I've read so far this month is Slugs by Shaun Hutson. And now this was one of those awesome covers that I bought recently, very 80s, very creature feature, and I don't know what to going and expecting a lot of gore obviously, but I thought it would be kind of stupid. I thought the plot would be non-existent, and I was pleasantly surprised. It is surprisingly suspenseful, a surprisingly entertaining novel in its own right. The writing is by no means perfect, but man, you actually get drawn into the sewers with these slugs, and it is a lot of fun. Yes, it is oozing slug kill action. There is blood, there is crap in the sewers, and some of the deaths and some of the the deaths that stand alone are pretty damn ridiculous. I mean, in the first chapter there's this guy who goes into his home where he's paid no bills, or he's drunk, he's smashed, and he can hardly stand. And guess what? He passes out on the floor. And guess what's down in the basement? And guess what? And this is not a spoiler, because it happens in the first chapter. And it's just to give you an idea of how ridiculous it is. Some of these set pieces are just... So these slugs come crawling out of this... they come crawling out, and obviously they slide slowly towards him. And it is pretty gross, it's pretty disgusting. And it seems that they start mutating, and they get more and more of a taste for human flesh and human blood, and they seem to be becoming more intelligent as well. So it is a hell of a lot of fun. It's a good read, it's a quick read, and even though his writing's not the best, it's actually very readable, and it's engaging at the same time. Now, without giving too much away, the only thing that seems to be standing in the way of these mutating flesh-eating slugs from taking over the small town outside of London is a health inspector named Brady, and he's assisted by a sewer expert who spends his life down in the sewers and the shit, and between the two of them they need to find a way to stop this slug outbreak and to stop the slaughter and stop the deaths. Now, it is really as ridiculous as it sounds, but as I've said before, just a bit of suspension of disbelief on your part, and going into it and seeing it for what it is, a very cheesy 80s sort of B-movie, popcorn eating, ridiculous book. I really had a lot of fun with slugs, and it's well worth a go. Okay everyone, and now we're saving the best for last. I'm very, very surprised how this book was never on my radar in my youth. And this is Necroscope by Brian Lumley, and you gotta love the cover. Now, this is a highly original take on the vampire tale, although in this particular story, which is the first of a series, vampires sort of take a back seat, but there is so much going on in this novel. There's ESP, that's extrasensory perception, for those of you not in the know. There is a necroscope, and there's a necromancer. I will explain the difference in a moment. There is the deceased, who are actually not gone. There's life after death. There is a man with an evil eye, and there's just so much more to the story. It is just brilliant. So much goodness packed into this novel. Okay, set in the 1970s, you have a super secret Russian agency that operates outside of the Russian Secret Service that deals with ESP. And they're shining light. I mean, they recruit agents who have these special abilities. And their shining light is a necromancer named Dragosoni. Now, Dragosoni is highly ambitious, and we see him in the very first scene, which is super gross, and it's disgusting, but we can immediately see what his talent is. He can rip the secrets out of dead people. And when I say rip, I mean he basically rips apart the dead body, putting pieces of the flesh and all the different body parts close to his mouth, and he finds out their secrets, the dead man's secrets. And really it is one of the grossest scenes in the whole novel. But it sets the scene that he is the baddie, and that, I mean, this whole idea as well of the Russians behind the Iron Curtain, that almost brings back to mind, you know, those old James Bond movies where the Russians are always the villains, and there's a, you know, if you betray your country, you get shot, and that there's backstabbing, and you have to watch your back all the time. So there's all these preconceptions about how Russians behave during the Cold War. which sets the scene where they are the bad guys. Now this Dragosony is an interesting character because he's also not Russian, and whenever he gets a chance he goes back to his hometown in Romania, I think it's Romania, and he has a relationship, I wouldn't say it's a relationship, from a young age with this buried vampire, centuries old vampire, who is an evil bastard. And this vampire is entombed, he is trapped with silver and with earth, and he wants to get out. But at the same time, Dragosony wants to learn new secrets. He doesn't just want to be a necromancer. His ambition, he wants to take over Russia, basically. He wants to take over the world. And so he constantly visits this vampire, and there's a very interesting relationship between the two of them. And this, basically, he is the antagonist of the story. And then on the other end of the good-evil spectrum, you have a British secret society or secret agency, super secret agency, which also operates on the fringes. And they are yet to discover a young man named Harry Keogh. Now this is spelled Keough, so I have no idea how to pronounce it. But anyway, he's a necroscope, not a necromancer. Now a necroscope can talk with the dead, because the dead actually want to be listened to. They're lonely, and he doesn't force the issue like Dragosony. And the dead want to help him, and they do help him. And it's very interesting at the beginning where he is at school still. So it's almost like he's got some catching up to do with Dragosony. I'm pretty sure the author did that on purpose, to make the evil almost more threatening at that stage than the good. And the fact that the secret society hasn't even discovered this man yet. And I loved his story, because it starts out when he's still at school, and he's seen as this weird kid who is kind of an outcast at school. And he has these daydreams, he blanks out in class. And I don't want to give too much away. I'm really worried that I'm giving away a minor spoiler here and there, but I don't think so. But his dad helped him at school. That's all I'm going to say. And this novel is about these two characters. Harry being the protagonist and representing, I suppose, you have to say good, and Dragosony, the antagonist, who is the necromancer who rips answers out of the dead, whereas Harry just gets their help in a gentle way, because they like to talk and they're lonely. And this first 2/3 of the novel is the backstory, and it talks about how they grew up, these two characters, how they learn their abilities, how they master their abilities, and it's very obvious that they're on a collision course with one another. And obviously that is going to happen, and this novel is wonderfully well told. And when the collision course happens, it is fun, it is exciting, and the ending actually is nothing that I expected. It brings in a whole lot of different stuff that you don't see coming. And I cannot stress this enough, I cannot wait to sink my teeth into the rest of this series. This was a great read. 4.5, I gave it 4 on Goodreads, but you know what? It's a 5-star. This was an amazing read, and I don't know why I've never read this book before. It should have been on my radar. Okay, my 4th book is, I've just started the week of Weird, and I've started reading Perdido Street Station. Now as you can see, this is a massive book. It's 800 plus pages, so I don't think I'll be doing a hell of a lot more this week than reading this book. Now the interesting thing is the opening is actually wonderfully imaginative. It's almost like this weird blend of science fiction and fantasy. The city is very strange, where all the events take place. Look, I'm only on page 30 and I'm intrigued already. There's a very strange relationship at the beginning between what seems to be a human and a female insectoid who's described as quite sexily. And they're having sort of a weird affair. So I have a feeling this book is going to get very, 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 very weird. But I'm enjoying it so far, so by the end of the week I'll let you know how my week's reading has gone. Okay, so everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. That is my reading update for this month so far. Take care of yourselves, please. Keep those pages turning, and cheers.